A city street in Asia. Police are baffled by a gruesome scene. A dead body lies on the back of a truck. A massive exit wound reveals muscles torn to shreds. Stunned bystanders cannot believe what they are seeing. All they know is that a whale has exploded in a street. Taiwan, an island 200 miles east of China. On the southern coast of the island lies the city of Tainan. January the 26th, 2004, 6:30 a.m. and the city is just waking up. On Shimen Road, a supermarket prepares for another busy day. Just outside, a man rests after a big night out. A truck driver makes his way through the city streets, carrying an unusual load. A dead sperm whale weighing over 50 tons, which was washed up on the coast 48 hours ago. This massive cargo is being taken to the city's university for scientific analysis. But the journey is cut short by an unimaginable event. Large parts of intestine, chunks of blubber, and gallons of blood have exploded out of the sperm whale. One of the first to see the carnage is marine biologist Professor Wang Jiangping. Revisiting the scene 4 years later, he remembers all the gory details.
I get off the car and go to the truck. And I find the sperm whale broken, some intestine hanging in the body, and blood flowing in the ground. Every whale have blood. White car became red color. We find 3 part intestine on the ground.
People on the street look on in disbelief.
Well, it's roti.
Blood.
It was spreading those organs like a disaster or a big murders happening here. Yeah.
It's just like a horror movie. This whole window is blood.
Most amazing thing I saw was all these blood and guts flowing along the road, really red, bloody mess.
Eyewitnesses are overwhelmed by the stench of rotting flesh.
I would never forget the smell in my lifetime.
The smell very disgusting.
It's like tons of fishes death on the road. tons of fishes. Yeah.
长17公尺、重达60吨的抹香鲸就这样在台南市西门路口。
Local news cameras quickly arrive on the scene, capturing surreal images.
还有停在一旁的车辆，工作人员忙着清理脏兮兮的路面。
Journalist Jason Pan realizes the incident is big news and breaks the story around the world on the internet.
To me, still, this is the biggest story I was ever involved in. Bigger than the soccer championship, baseball championship, or visit of some big president in Taiwan. I knew it was very interesting news because I never seen a whale on land. Usually, it's near beach, and the fact it exploded, it was something really interesting. I think it was kind of funny, also in a macabre way.
The scale of the carnage leads some people to fear the worst.
People saying, well, whale exploded. What is this, like a terrorist bomb, like whale exploding? You know, is Taiwan developing some kind of, biological bomb, weapon of whale mass destruction? There have been a lot of website discussion how, U.S. State Department should check out Taiwan. They're developing some kind of biological bomb about it.
While talk of conspiracy spreads on the web, Professor Wang concentrates on gathering the whale's remains. He is still determined to carry out a necropsy or animal autopsy and preserve the skeleton for his museum. His dedication impresses Professor Liang Shangshu, director of Taiwan's National Whale Stranding Network.
I was very proud of the response of Professor Wang, because for most people they think, oh, stinging, or terrible, and messy, ugly or yuck. But Professor Wang tell everybody, oh, help me, try to collect all the intestine back. That's my treasure. What he care about is his specimen, those the dirty and messy intestine he want to collect back.
Wang's priority is retrieving as much of his whale as possible. The city's priority is limiting a potential health hazard. As a massive cleanup begins, the press follow the whale to its final destination, miles away from Ximen Road, and photographers capture more gruesome images. A makeshift canopy is erected over the whale, since no building on the site is big enough to house a creature of this size. Just hours after the explosion, a team of scientists and volunteers begin their daunting challenge.
We use 60 people and 10 days to dissect the sperm whale.
The scale of their task is immense. Tons of blubber are peeled away, revealing layers of tough muscle. Massive organs like the heart are removed for laboratory analysis. Giant intestines are laid out near to the whale's body. Curious onlookers flock to see this gory and unforgettable scene.
This sperm whale became very, very famous.
The sperm whale's skeleton is now a popular tourist attraction, and the explosion is now part of Taiwanese folklore. Yet the chain of events behind this extraordinary incident remained a mystery. Until now. A team of international experts have been gathered to find an explanation. They're looking for a clue in this video archive, some of which has never been seen outside Taiwan, all searching for a piece of lurking evidence, a key to unlocking what could possibly be the trigger behind the whale exploding in the street. Liverpool, England. Veterinary pathologist Julian Chantry looks at the grisly aftermath of the explosion.
It's incredible, yeah, it really is. You just wouldn't have expected that to happen.
Chantry is certain that the force and sheer energy behind the explosion are due to internal decomposition.
Decomposition is when the body is starting to break down. So there's no longer any blood supply, and organs and tissues are starting to just break apart, to degenerate.
Decomposition begins as soon as any animal dies. The lack of blood carrying oxygen around the body causes organs and tissues to start breaking down. As the body starts to decay, bacteria present in the gut escape and spread into the abdomen. These bacteria release toxins and accelerate the degeneration of the body proteins, which generate gases. As these volatile gases increase, they create pressure in the abdomen, causing the body to expand. To demonstrate the effects of decomposition, Chantry carries out a necropsy on a farm pig that has died of natural causes. It may be smaller than a sperm whale, but the manner in which animals decompose is essentially the same in all species.
So we've got this pig, and it's died 3 days ago, and since then it's been rotting. The skin is becoming discolored because you've got an escape of bacteria. They're spreading away from the gut then into the surrounding tissues and creating this green-blue coloration of the skin. As a byproduct, they're giving off gas as well.
The gas produced internally will continue to expand, looking for a place to escape.
Now, can you hear the gas coming there? That's where I've gone through into the abdomen.
The biochemical reactions that produce the gas are at work in all of the pig's organs, especially the stomach and intestines.
You heard the release of gas there. And this is a very small-scale model of how it would be in the whale. Obviously, the whale is many hundreds of times bigger, and the pressure build-up will be correspondingly greater.
There would undoubtedly have been a buildup of gases inside the sperm whale. But is this natural process capable of causing such destruction? The whale's body parts strewn across the road tell a story of a violent explosion. Something must have detonated it, but what was the trigger? There must be more to this mystery than decomposition. Other factors never before investigated that help explain why the sperm whale blew up in Taiwan. The mystery of a giant sperm whale that blew up in a street in Taiwan has never been fully explained. Bruce Mate has studied marine mammals for 35 years and has witnessed firsthand the explosive energy that dead sperm whales can contain. In 1979, Mate was called to help remove a dead sperm whale that had washed up on an Oregon beach.
This is the scene of relieving pressure from an animal that's just died a few hours earlier but had been on the beach for several days alive. And just immediately after dying, I sent people out to cut the animals open so we didn't have exploding whales. And here they're taking their first slices with flensing knives, and immediately after that they turn to run because this is not the first animal they've done. And you can see the stretch marks here by the cuts. This wound is tearing this initial cut, but there's such strength in the animal's layers that it yet hasn't gone through into the peritoneal cavity. The muscles are tearing, and then finally it gets into the peritoneum where the pressure is, and kaboom, out comes all the guts and feathers, so to speak. You can see the blood mass ahead of everything else, the liquids, and then the solids behind that of the intestines and the organs.
The sperm whale in Oregon was less than half the size of the giant sperm whale that blew up in Taiwan. Parts of blubber were found streets away, suggesting a ferocious amount of pent-up energy. To estimate the amount of force required to blow up such a huge whale, British explosives expert Terry Thompson reviews the footage of the bloody aftermath.
This incredible event involved a rupturing of the sperm whale's abdomen, which caused material from the sperm whale to be projected quite a large distance. For instance, here you might just be able to make out a mass of material just adjacent next to this car here. That car is about 30 meters from the sperm whale. So for that to have been projected 30 meters indicates to me just how volatile an event this was. My estimation of this would be, it would be the equivalent to between 2 to 5 pounds of TNT equivalent explosives would have caused similar damage.
To test his theory, Thompson is using 4 pounds of dynamite to simulate the blast.
We are going to detonate in the middle of a huge mound of peat. It will produce a tamping effect on the explosive.
The peat bags are approximately the same size and weight of the body parts that were thrown across the street in Taiwan. If the peat bags are thrown a similar distance and some remain intact, then the experiment will have been successful.
3, 2, 1, fire!
Good. We can see from here there are still quite a few full bags lying about. I can see a kidney there. You know, it's quite easy to imagine that that's, you know, part of the whale's intestines. And similarly with all these other bags here.
Thompson's estimation looks accurate. The heavy peat bags are thrown a similar distance to the whale's guts.
I think that's as near a representation of what took place in Taiwan as we could have possibly hoped to achieve.
The blast required was 2 kilos of dynamite, the equivalent of 30 hand grenades.
If anybody had been unlucky enough to be standing immediately adjacent to the vehicle when that happened, they would have suffered quite serious injury, perhaps even death.
To test his theory, Thompson puts 2 mannequins in the firing line. Once again, he uses 4 pounds of dynamite.
3, 2, 1, fire!
Well, we've lost 1 mannequin. Blast often is enough to seriously injure or kill people. And at that distance from the explosion, certainly would have suffered ill effects.
But how can a mammal contain such a huge amount of potentially lethal energy? The sperm whale is an animal of extremes, uniquely adapted to resist massive amounts of external pressure exerted by the crushing depths where it dives for its food. Underwater, the planet's biggest predator can dive to 3,000 meters in search of deep-water squid, way beyond the range of many military submarines. The human body would be crushed to a bloody pulp at a fraction of that depth. But as an evolutionary byproduct, the very physique that keeps the crushing pressures out also keeps mounting internal pressure in.
The same tissues that prevent them from being squashed from external pressure are the pressures that hold in this decomposition of gases. And when they're relieved quickly, it can be quite explosive.
Given the exceptional tensile strength of the sperm whale, something must have weakened its almost indestructible exterior. The evidence shows that the vast amount of gore was jettisoned from the back of the whale. But this area is not commonly seen as a vulnerable part of the sperm whale's anatomy, adding to the mystery of why this whale exploded in the street. Marine scientists Paul Collins and Francis Gullen study video footage of a giant sperm whale that exploded in a street in Taiwan. They are both intrigued by the location of the giant exit wound.
And it's interesting, the break occurred almost along the center of the spine, the back, which is a very unusual spot for it to break and blow open.
That's where you've got the backbone and a lot of musculature that holds all the organs in. So if the animal was completely intact and going to explode, you usually would see it blowing out of the belly, where there's more pressure from the guts, and it's a weaker body wall, or out of the mouth.
You'd expect the weak point to be on the abdominal side of the animal. So something had happened in the tissue here to create a soft spot or a weak spot.
So I'm assuming there must have been something that compromised the back of the animal there.
So what could have possibly damaged this section of the sperm whale? The experts look at video footage captured 48 hours before the explosion, when a strange object is spotted in the water near an oyster farm 50 miles north of Tainan. It is a gigantic sperm whale, and it appears to be alive. Fishermen see its tail, known as the fluke, moving in the water.
The coordinator of Taiwan Cetacean Society, she got a phone call in the early morning, and the people told her this whale, the fluke, still flapping. Okay, that's the message she reported to me. So I thought, oh, okay, and what can we do? It's so big.
The whale becomes an urgent priority, and Professor Wang is in charge.
When I hear the news, I'm excited and surprised. A big sperm whale stranded in Taiwan.
Wang heads up a whale rescue team. But when they arrive at the scene, they discover the whale is dead. There are no obvious signs of the cause of death, and the carcass looks relatively fresh.
The skin is intact on this animal. You don't see any large white splotches on the surface of the animal, which would be indicative of the animal having floated for a while before it washed in, and the skin beginning to slough off the surface of the blubber.
In the water, the dorsal hump section from where the guts and blubber exploded looks intact, suggesting the damage may have occurred after the sperm whale died. This is no longer a rescue, but still an exciting opportunity to discover more about the physiology of sperm whales. Professor Wang must decide what to do with this giant specimen.
It was the biggest sperm whale I ever seen.
Wang is given the green light to retrieve the whale from the water, carry out a full post-mortem, known as a necropsy, and preserve the skeleton at the University Museum in Tainan. This whale's death is a rare opportunity to learn about one of the planet's most impressive creatures.
Sperm whales are probably one of the most mysterious animals on Earth. They live at depths of down to a mile deep. They swim for over 45 minutes on a single breath. On average, they come up and take 7 to 10 minutes to recharge their oxygen debt. They're feeding on deep water squids in virtual total darkness, so there's a lot of great mystique about sperm whales.
Sperm whales are giants of the sea, the largest predators on the planet. They reach lengths of over 60 feet and weigh up to 60 tons. Their brains are the largest of any animal on Earth. Sperm whales are found in every ocean in the world, yet their trademark fluke, waving on the surface of the water before they dive, is rarely seen. So, the opportunity to study one of these incredible mammals is exceptional. But getting this huge sperm whale out of the water is a logistical headache for Professor Wang and his team, requiring delicate handling and heavy lifting equipment. Responding to large stranded whales is a problem around the world. Marine scientists Paul Collins and Francis Gulland have worked extensively with stranded marine mammals off the coast of California.
Every time you have a dead whale, it's always a problem to figure out where are you going to necropsy it, how are you going to cut it up, what are the logistics. I think all of us that work on large dead whales, we're always so interested in the animal itself and finding out why it died, in looking at all the extraordinary organs and massive heart, that you get caught up in it, and so you're excited, interested, usually working against time, so you don't think about how hard it is. It's only the next day when you wake up in the morning and you can't actually move that you realize that it was hard work.
Our excitement level goes up if it's something that we haven't seen before, or if it would make a great addition to our research collection or for possible public display. Yeah, definitely the excitement goes up. And you do whatever you have to do in order to try to retrieve the animal or retrieve the material out of the animal. In some cases, it's carving it up and harvesting the material right there on the beach. In other cases, you can't do it on the beach. You have to bring the carcass back to where you can work on it.
It is hard enough performing a necropsy on a beach and then removing the body parts. But in Taiwan, the sperm whale was stranded in an ocean oyster farm, an impossible location for scientific research. Wang has no choice but to hoist the whale out of the water and transport it to his university in Tainan City. But could this difficult procedure have backfired on the professor, damaging the dorsal hump, creating a weak point which will be ripped apart in less than 24 hours' time? Paul Collins examines the sperm whale being lifted by its fluke.
If you lift it by the tail stalk, that's a huge amount of weight on the whole vertebral column. That can potentially cause additional breakdown of tissue and bones and other things internally. It may begin to rip and tear muscle, might even begin to rip and tear some of the fibers within the blubber layer, and that may be potentially a contributing factor to that point at which it broke.
Out of the water, the whale is no longer weightless, and the chains around the fluke strain to support its 56-ton mass. This puts massive stress on the vertebrae, right by the dorsal hump, stretching the skin and the blubber to what could have been breaking point. The whale is too heavy for the cranes, and eventually, this lift is called off.
We use 2 40-ton cranes to lift the sperm whale, but in fail because the sperm whale too heavy. So we change another 120-ton crane.
13 hours since the recovery operation began, the greater lifting capacity of these giant cranes is finally successful.
When the sperm whale lift out the water, we are very happy.
And the sheer size of this magnificent animal can now be fully appreciated.
sometimes it's hard to tell people, how big. If you tell, oh, the whale is 10 meters or 12 meters, people say, oh, yeah. But once you get close to that creature, you just feel, you compare how little you are and how big is the whale. And then I think most people, they will have some special feeling.
And it is suddenly clear to Professor Wang why it was proving so hard to lift.
When the sperm whale in water, most body under the water, I imagine just 20 tons. But after we lift it out, we find it more than 50 tons.
This sperm whale is the biggest one in Taiwan ever stranded.
The subsequent attempts to lift the whale could have put even more stress on the dorsal hump area. And the positioning of the cable wrapped near the tail section of the whale could also be a key culprit.
Oh, here's the photo that really tells the story. There are two cranes, and there are only two wires suspending the animal. You can see the forward cables cutting into the head quite a bit, but there's no pressure there. You really have to get back into the area where there's a body cavity. But the other cable is suspended exactly where the blowout occurred.
Mate believes these cables could be responsible for the weak spot on the lower part of the sperm whale's spine.
These are the vertebrae of a minke whale, but it demonstrates the point that you have these processes that the muscles attach to in the back. And when a cable goes around an animal is cinched down tightly, there's the opportunity for it to come down between the vertebral elements and cut through some of the important integument that might make that a likely place for pressure to leave the body. And particularly at the back of the animal, behind the dorsal hump, where it's already the thinnest part of the body, damage to this area from the cable lifting and the original lift at the wharf may have been what made that area weak to blow out in the back. They had a hold of a time bomb.
Could these cables have caused enough stress on the dorsal hump to trigger the bloody events on Ximen Road? Or are there more pieces in the puzzle causing this enormous creature to blow up in the street? A team of experts pore over video footage of a 50-ton sperm whale that blew up in a street in Asia, attempting to solve the mystery of what caused the explosion. At this point in the investigation, the cable cutting into the lower spine is the main suspect. But now the whale is out of the ocean and no longer in the cooling waters. Other factors need to be explored. The sperm whale is being subjected to external heat, allowing the temperature inside to rise and bacteria to spread. A combination advancing tissue breakdown.
Now, instead of having the water cooling the outside part of the animal, potentially keeping a little bit of the temperature down internally, it's sitting out exposed to the temperatures that are out in the air, which is going to increase that temperature on the outside and allow kind of that decomposition process to also probably increase slightly.
Evidence that decomposing gases are creating a buildup of internal pressure is apparent in this photograph.
As a whale decomposes, those gases build up and they're looking for a way out. And the easiest place to look at that is usually in the genital slit area. So the pressure from inside will push all the parts of the genitals out. So in a male, you get a massive extruding of the penis. In the females, the nipples start to spread out and the whole area becomes very swollen.
At some point during the lift, the whale's penis became exposed, forced out of the genital slit that normally acts as a protective sheath to streamline the whale underwater. On the first lift, the genital slit remains closed. But here, hours later, after the final lift, the 5-foot penis is fully exposed.
You know, those are kind of red flags that you want to pay attention to when you have a large whale carcass. And to worry about if you're going to be moving it around or keeping it out of the water for an extended period of time.
But few realize this is a warning sign. For the masses who turned out to see this monster from the deep, the penis became the main attraction.
very big, large, and local people were very fascinated. And some went and tried to touch it. Many men, they look at it, they say, wow, 这真厉害, 这很厉害. They say, wow, this is amazing, this is impressive. They never seen anything like it. Because in Taiwan, Chinese mythology, you know, like dog, deer, seal penis is aphrodisiac, and they wouldn't think of eating it. They just say this is the biggest male thing they ever seen in their lives. So they want to come close and touch it.
A flatbed truck is hired to transport the whale to nearby Cheng Kung University in Tainan for a full necropsy. But once again, the whale's immense size proves overwhelming.
When we put the sperm whale in the truck, it's too small, so the truck crash. So we change a big one, 100-ton truck.
By the time a bigger truck arrives, Wang's team has to work in darkness. The difficult job of securing the whale onto the flatbed may have contributed to the buildup of pressure inside the whale.
Tying an animal down firmly in order to hold it on a truck definitely puts a lot more tension and pressure on that overlying blubber layer, forcing down pressure onto the internal thoracic and abdominal cavities, which the pressure just builds in a less amount of space. It's going to get higher and higher tension underneath that, and is eventually going to blow.
The cables themselves, used to strap down the whale on the flatbed, could possibly have compromised the tail section.
I'm going to guess that when they ratcheted the cables down to hold the animal, that the one that was farthest to the back on the truck, or just the weight of the flukes moving around at the back of the truck, caused a break through in one of the thinnest areas to the peritoneum, the inner body cavity, and that made it a thinner escape area for pressure.
The whale is held overnight outside a Coast Guard inspection station because of the late hour. Inside, an associate of Professor Wang, Mr. Lin, and the truck driver are resting. But their break will be short-lived.
We heard a swah. So the Coast Guard on duty and the driver and me go out to find what happened.
哇，怎么都是血呀？
哎，刚才到门街了，那了。On the surface, there is a blood with water sprayed like a fan-like, and distributed very evenly.
Walk in.
And we realize the blood and water come from the blowhole.
This eruption of blood from the blowhole is another piece of evidence, proof that inside the whale, decomposition is in an advanced state.
The bloody water that came out of the whale's blowhole was probably due to the pressure squeezing the lungs. The lungs are a very vascular organ, lots of small blood vessels, which would be breaking down, and the blood within them would be just becoming loose. And the pressure may have led to some of this degenerating blood being blown out of the blowhole.
In the whale, decomposition accelerates like a runaway train. The faster internal tissues and organs deteriorate, the faster bacteria spread, breaking down the body's proteins and generating even more gas, increasing the pressure in the abdomen and intestines. As this pressure builds, all the energy searches for an escape. Just like the penis, the release of body fluid from the blowhole is a warning sign. The blood forced out of the blowhole makes Professor Wang realize his precious cargo is increasingly volatile and needs to be taken to his laboratory as soon as possible.
I worry about moving the sperm whale, but we had to do it.
Wang needs to get through the city while it is quiet and cool, but his plan is thwarted. His immense cargo cannot be accommodated at his university. Plan B entails hauling the massive animal to a conservation area on the opposite side of the city. It's now daylight, and the temperature rises. The whale is at breaking point. The pressure within has risen to an astonishing level. And at Shimen Road, Professor Wang runs out of time. These extraordinary images of the exploding whale seem to be a result of a bizarre chain reaction. The damage to the tail section of the whale, being out of the cool water, allowing internal temperature to rise. The cables strapping down the whale, adding even more stress to the dorsal hump. This seems to be an open and shut case, until a new scientist joins the investigation. An expert with a brand new brief that has not yet been considered. Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, California. Whales stranding coordinator Michelle Berman studies the exit wound and blood on the street. These images may well suggest that the explosion is due to an event at sea before the whale was first spotted.
It is very suspicious to me that you have this deep, dark tissue completely adjacent to this very healthy pink tissue. It looks like it's probably a hematoma filled with blood from an injury.
A hematoma or bruising suggests the whale received an impact injury before it was lifted out of the water.
If I didn't see the clean pink muscle tissue around it, I wouldn't be so suspicious. I would just say, oh, it looks like degradation and decomposition. But given that you can see the pink tissue around it and then you have that deep, dark purple tissue just below it, it has the appearance of some kind of trauma occurring in that spot. And then also in the foreground here, you can see this area, which appears to be coagulated blood. It almost looks like little grapes inside here.
Coagulated blood forms when the body tries to prevent hemorrhaging from some sort of trauma. Both bruising and coagulation only occur when blood is flowing through the body. In other words, when the animal is alive. But what could inflict such a huge trauma to the biggest predator on the planet? The investigation into why the whale exploded has a new theory. Trauma, inflicted while the mammal was still alive. In the ocean, a sperm whale as big as this has no natural predators. But they, like all whales, can suffer fatal injury inflicted by commercial shipping vessels.
Most of these large tanker ships now have a very large bulbous metal projection off the bow of the ship that actually rides underneath the water. If a whale's in front of the ship at the time that the ship comes through, basically it's like a large battering ram just slamming right into the side of the animal.
Ventura County, California, 2007. A blue whale washes up dead. Michelle Berman coordinates a team sent to perform a necropsy. The cause of death is ship strike. The photos of the blue whale's tissue damage are similar to photos taken of the exploding sperm whale in Taiwan.
This shows inside the body cavity, just to orient you. These are 4 of the broken rib bones sticking up here. The point of impact is probably directly on this area. The bow of the boat probably hit directly here. And you can see this darkened, deep dark purple tissue. Looks very similar to the muscle tissue hanging off of the sperm whale, all an indication of trauma to that area. And down in the base here, you can see all of this coagulated blood, very similar in appearance to the blood of the sperm whale that was on the streets.
The similarities in the 2 injuries are striking. But of all the marine mammals, sperm whales have a capacity to avoid ship strike.
Sperm whales, more than most other species, make their living with their ears. They are very acoustically aware animals, and their sonar signals are broad-banded, and they're listening to all kinds of frequencies and delay responses in order to visualize their environment and hunt successfully.
No matter how good their hearing, sperm whales may at times be less aware. New evidence suggests sperm whales are at risk recuperating on the surface of the ocean after a deep dive. Dr. Luke Rendell captured these extraordinary images while studying sperm whales off the coast of Chile.
The first phase of this footage shows what a sperm whale normally does when it's alert. As we get close alongside the boat, this whale reacts. There it goes. It does what we call a banana. Bends its body like that in preparation for moving around.
Rendell's theory, backed up by these images, is that sperm whales sometimes sleep after deep dives.
These guys coming into shot now don't respond at all. And you can see some of the animals are vertical, hanging vertically in the water. This is the characteristic posture of what we think they're doing is basically sleeping. So obviously they're very vulnerable to being struck during that time.
This behavior has never been documented before and provides evidence that a ship could easily hit a sperm whale. The world's oceans are busier than ever with boat traffic, meaning that marine mammals are increasingly vulnerable.
They're simply feeding in the shipping lane. So it'd be like you sitting eating a hamburger in the middle of a motorway.
When a ship's moving forward, the noise of the ship's at the back, and the ship itself forms an acoustic shadow ahead of it. So it's less likely that a whale is going to hear the ship if it's right on the front beam of the oncoming ship.
If you're in an area of high shipping, you get this kind of acoustic fog, which is just all the noise that the various ships that are putting in. Trying to pick out an individual source, an individual ship during that time, it would be very, very difficult.
The Tainan sperm whale was found near some of the busiest shipping lanes in the South China Sea, and during the sperm whale's necropsy, Professor Wang found evidence supporting the ship strike theory.
I find the bone protect the spinal cord is broken. I think maybe something big crush it.
The ship strike theory sheds new light on the mystery of why the sperm whale blew up in the street. A blunt blow from a bow of a ship to the back of the animal would have caused severe internal trauma, causing a weak point in the dorsal hump area without any signs of external damage. The discoloration of the muscles and tissues in this section is very similar to the confirmed ship strikes of blue whales in California. Combined with the recovery operation, cables cutting into the dorsal hump area, and cables strapping down the whale too tightly on the flatbed truck would have made this weak point even more vulnerable. A ship strike at sea seems to be the main culprit, but all these components are accomplices, triggering this bizarre and extraordinary explosion that the people of Taiwan and Professor Wang will never forget.